I think moms often forget about themselves and don't take care of themselves. And then in that process, I think they become unhappy and they become more willing to lash out at other parents and judgmental and things like that. And I think that is so hurtful.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning into this episode of Mom Talks with Christa. We've got another great episode for you today. I have Alexandra Cunningham here from This Family Tree, and we cover a lot of really important topics. First, we talk about her hilarious videos that her and her husband create on their page, This Family Tree. They also have a really awesome podcast. You have to go check it out. They have really relatable and funny videos that I think any parent would enjoy watching. And the big topic we discuss is beauty standards and how they are put on children younger and younger these days. So we have a great discussion on that and tips that you can apply to your family today so you don't fall victim to unrealistic beauty standards. So we just have a really great conversation and I can't wait for you guys to hear it. And of course, stick around the end for our new segment, Mom Tales of the Week, where we read off your fun stories, answers, and so much more from our posts on social media. So we'll read off some of our favorites at the very end. So without further ado, here's my interview with Alexandra Cunningham. Before we get started, can you just tell us a little bit about you and who you are?
My name is Alexandra Cunningham. I started This Family Tree, which is like the hub for everything that me and my husband, who's my partner in all of this, do together. So started out doing Instagram when I was pregnant with my first kid in 2018 because I was having a very difficult pregnancy. I have lupus, so I was high risk. Nothing was easy in the pregnancy. Everything was so difficult. And I really was just, I guess, looking for a community to speak to and to connect with and to just kind of help me out, I guess. And it was amazing. And then from that, we started our podcast, this Family Tree podcast, which I love and am so proud of. And then we recently got on TikTok because being at home in the pandemic, you just need to throw more stuff on your plate. And it's been really great. So I have lupus, which is why I have the high risk pregnancy. And now I have two beautiful daughters, Lucy and Betty. Betty was a pandemic baby. And we are just so busy. Lucy woke me up at 3:00 this morning and I haven't been to sleep since. So losing my head, but it's okay.
It's an adventure, right?
That's a way to put it.
So when it comes to having lupus and being pregnant, are there different things that you had to kind of do differently, like how to look out for or different treatment during your pregnancy?
With women with lupus, there's a small percentage of them that have a specific antibody. It's like the anti-Rho, anti-LA antibody, something like that. And that antibody has the potential to cross over the placenta and go into the baby. And then of that small group of women, it's only like, 0.2% of those women actually have that happen. So for both of my pregnancies, that did happen, where the antibody crossed over the placenta over to the babies. So both babies had neonatal lupus. So every 2 weeks, I'd have to go for a fetal echocardiogram, which was actually very cool because I got to see my babies on the screen every 2 weeks and check up on them. It was a very relaxing part of my day. It would take an hour to do each time. But of course, it was filled with a lot of worry because there were so many more risks involved, both for myself and for the viability of the babies. I ended up having to get an amniocentesis with Lucy. And then with Betty, we had to get testing as well, just because both of them were like 1 in 18 of having genetic abnormalities. And, I'm familiar with some of those. Like I'm familiar with Down syndrome and things like that. I don't find that scary. But then some of the abnormalities are really scary and require a lot of care and knowledge and things like that. So that whole process was really terrifying, especially because I didn't know how me having lupus, how I'd handle pregnancies like that. It was difficult. Everything is kind of exacerbated having lupus, and like my pelvic floor is really screwed up from both kids sitting really low, and I was induced both times. But it was our journey, but it was parts of it were quite difficult.
I mean, I can't imagine like going through like the excitement of, pregnancy, but also, there's that fear
Mhm.
that goes along with it too. So that's awesome to hear that, it's two healthy girls that everything went well.
How many children do you have? Sorry.
Oh, I actually don't have kids.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What inspired you to do Mom Talks?
So actually, our company, Mommy Knows Best, was started by Tim and his wife, Jenny, and because of her milk supply issues. Yeah. And so Mommy Knows Best
Oh.
started with supplements for boosting milk supply. And then I've always been in communication with marketing. And I had started with our Facebook group and kind of just talking with the moms and just creating like a safe space for the moms to come together. One day we were kind of just talking and we're like, we should kind of turn this into a podcast, into a show. And so now we've been interviewing and talking to moms for like the past 2.5 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so it kind of gives me, I feel like, an interesting edge because I'm asking questions. I mean, it's for new moms, a lot of the
Mhm.
podcasts we put out. So I'm like, all right, well, if I don't know it, there's probably a lot of people out there that don't know it either.
Mm.
So yeah, so I'll be ready well, I don't know if I'll be fully ready, but I'll be more ready than I was before
Oh,
that.
that's the goal, is to at least feel ready and trick yourself into thinking that you're ready, because you're never actually ready. And as ready as you feel like you are, you're gonna get thrown a curveball that you don't know how to deal with. But I think tricking yourself into thinking you're ready is the best way to go into it, because then at least I think you keep a cooler head.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like a lot of the stuff that we talk about on the podcast and in our group and stuff are things that I never learned growing up or never heard about growing up. And so yeah, it's an interesting space to be in because that's like the
No,
first
yeah.
task. Yeah.
It's amazing. And there needs to be more community leaders, because so many people fall through the cracks and don't get heard, and it's so isolating.
Mhm.
But that's awesome. Sorry, and it sounds like you're from Rochester also.
No.
Oh, where are you?
I've lived in the Chicago suburbs my whole life.
There you go. I have friends from Rochester. You sound identical.
Oh, really?
But sorry to derail that, Krista.
Oh, you're good. No, you're good. So I kind of want to talk to you about your hilarious like parenting videos on Instagram, your reels. What kind of inspired you guys to start? I know you kind of said with the pandemic. I know a lot of people jumped on TikTok and reels during the pandemic. So for you guys, what kind of directed the angle you kind of went in with your videos? Because I just think they're super relatable, but they're also funny that a lot of people can find some I don't know, find humor in and also find like, all right, these are my people.
Well, so much of parenting is, I mean, you gotta laugh at it so you don't cry. And I think especially when it gets into different ways, because a lot of our videos center on different parenting choices that people might make. And we often feature maybe a judgmental parent couple, right? And we really try to use hyperbole to exaggerate how silly they sound when they're being judgmental, just to show that, like, you're going to choose to do one thing for your family. I'm going to choose to do something totally different. And this is how stupid it sounds if we start sitting here and yammering on and bickering and judging each other about our decisions. You get a lot of that online. You get a lot of that in mommy groups. People are more than happy to tell you that they think you're doing it wrong, you're doing a bad job, or that they're doing better than you. And it's stupid, it's narcissistic, and it doesn't get us anywhere as a collective. And mothers are, after the second you give birth to the baby and you're out of that hospital, mothers have no support. And whether it's in their community, it can be very hard. In their own friend group, sometimes they might feel isolated if they're the only one that have kids. And it's just by the general government, especially, I mean, I look at the states and like, I weep, you guys. The government has such little respect for new parents. And it does nothing but hurt us as a collective when we sit there and judge each other and put each other down. So through our videos, we really just want to shine a light on that. And like, we make fun of ourselves sometimes. People, will make a video and people, they love to get mad at us in the comments because they think that we're being judgmental.
Right.
But like, no, like that's what we do. We're making fun of what we do ourselves, but from a standpoint where we're really just trying to poke fun at the judgy parents. Because again, we have to hold each other up. We have to rise together in order to get more respect from our governments, get more time off work, get paid mat leave. Where I live in my city, I have free access to lactation consultants, and they'll come to your house for free, paid for by my city. That's amazing. Not many cities have that. And that depresses me because if I didn't have that free access, I don't know how my breastfeeding journey would have gone with my first, because it was going terribly. I was bleeding through my nipples and curling my toes in pain, crying every single time she would latch. And I was really having a hard time with it and I wanted to quit. But I had the lactation consultant come over, and it was a great experience, and it truly helped me. So I think things like that help so much, and we need to do it together. I mean, you don't get medals in motherhood for suffering more than the next person. You don't get medals in motherhood for, you know, making all the right choices by somebody's guidebook. And it's it's just, you shun the community when you do that. And I think we've all been there as moms. We've all been in a place where we've thought, "Oh, like that's a weird decision they're making. I'm doing it better than them." And for me, when that happens, if it even comes in my mind for a flicker, I just try to like expel it the second I can, because it's bullshit, and it does nothing for me as a person. It does nothing for the mother who I'm, judging. And I'm getting a lot better at not having those thoughts really even come in my mind. But before I had kids, I was super judgmental about how to parent before I even became pregnant. So
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's so interesting because yeah, we have a Facebook group here too, and that's like one of our biggest things is we're gonna like we moderate the out of it because when it started, I mean, people would just go off about things and we're like,
yeah.
we're not gonna allow that here because who are you to judge someone else's like family? I mean, I feel like when it all
Mhm.
comes down to it, we always want the best for ourselves and our family. And to just peeking through the windows of someone else and be like, "Ah, you're doing it wrong." It's like we don't know everyone's full story. So
Exactly.
mm,
Exactly. And more than that, even, it's just like, look how often things change in parenthood. I was talking to some women today, and they're a little bit older than me, and their kids are in high school, whereas my kids are 3.5 and 1.5. And they were saying how like their kids are allergic to everything. And they were wondering if it's because at that time the doctors were saying, oh, well, wait until they're 2 to give them peanuts and let them try allergens and things like that. Whereas, now we're getting told to give your kids allergens 6 months. And it's like things change so frequently. And it's just because we're learning all the time, right? We're learning, and a little bit is trial and error. And if one person was told one thing, I mean, you can't hold anything like that against them. And then again, like you said, you don't know the full picture. You don't know that one mother needed to sleep train because she was losing it and suffering from PPD, or just delirious from the lack of sleep, and it was the best thing for her family, for her. Because you can't take care of your kids successfully if you are not taking care of yourself. And that's the bottom line. You have to be the best version of yourself, or at least the happiest or nearing that, to bring that to your children and to your family, right? So I think moms often forget about themselves and don't take care of themselves. And then in that process, I think they become unhappy and they become more willing to lash out at other parents and judgmental and things like that. And I think that is so hurtful. So we want to bring laughs into parenthood because so much of it is hilarious, or is, like I said, so exhausting and tear inducing that you may as well laugh, because if you don't, then we're all kind of in this together in this really beautiful, tiring, crazy trip of an experience.
yeah, absolutely. And I think you've kind of you form this awesome community where you can, yeah, like laugh about and relate on different topics. And I think that's the power of social media and that community. I mean, obviously there's a lot of negatives, like you said, there's the trolls and there's people out there that'll find something
Yeah.
negative no matter what. But there's that positive aspect too, where people are able to connect and relate to one another. So I think that's awesome what you guys do. Yeah, and I know another thing you're really passionate about is beauty standards that we set on kids. It starts really young in the society.
Mhm.
And so you had something that happened to your 3-year-old when she was in preschool. I don't know if you want to share that story and what it kind of started into beauty standards.
Like, I didn't know that, it's my kid's first picture day. She's 3 years old in preschool. And like, what was it? A few weeks before picture day, she's running around like she's a maniac. So she's running around in the living room and she runs straight into the glass coffee table, splits her eyebrow open, and it's like hanging like this. It was disgusting. So my husband, who can't stand blood, he was with them at the time. He's like, Alex, get over here. So I run over and, I take a look and I almost vomit, and I'm like, okay with injuries and blood and things. So I'm like, okay, let's get, gauze on it, and we got to go right to the hospital. So get to the hospital, they glue it. They use like a medical skin glue to glue it back together. And it's just gnarly looking. Like it was so gross. There was blood and scabs, and you could still see the insides of her eyebrow. It was disgusting. And we had to leave it like that. And I didn't want to keep putting band-aids on it because the band-aids were irritating her skin. So when picture day came, she had a little bit of glue, but she had just a big red scar.
Mhm.
Okay, the majority of the glue had come off. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be kind of cute. It's gonna be a moment in time. She's always gonna have this scar there. So it'll be kind of funny to explain to her when she's older that, oh my goodness, you see that scar on your eyebrow? Look what you looked like at picture day. This is how it happened. And just have that conversation. And it's a part of her now. That scar is now a part of her face.
Mhm.
So it would be nice to have that kind of picture day. I thought it was perfectly timed. And then when I got the images back, it took me a second, but I realized that the scar was like totally smoothed over. Like you could see a tiny, tiny bit, but nothing like it was. And I was like, what the heck? So I asked the daycare proprietor, what happened to it? And she goes, oh, I don't know. And I said, do they touch up the kids' photos? And she goes, no, that would be crazy. And I was like, yeah, that would be crazy, but can you ask them? And then she's like, you know what? I did think that all the kids looked like really good, like models for their pictures. And then she started showing me and we're going through them. Every kid had it looked like they were wearing a highlighter. They had perfectly smooth skin. Like they were just glowing. And I was like, they're all beautiful kids already, but they do look oddly like Instagrammy perfect in these images. So she asked the people that did the photos, and they said that they quote unquote clean them up before giving them out to the parents. Like, clean them up. Clean them up from what? Like, can I swear? Is that
Oh, go for it.
okay? It's like, what the do you need to clean up on a 3-year-old that isn't perfect? I don't care if it's a scar. I don't care if it's cookies on the corner of her mouth because she was eating a snack. That's who she is. That is what a 3-year-old embodies. So when I finally got, because they gave me the originals, and when I was comparing them side by side, so they smoothed her skin, not just her scab, but like everywhere. And then they brightened the overall image and they kind of got rid of some flyaways. And it just made me so sick because I'm a 32-year-old woman. And like I grew up, we had cell phones. Like I think people had cell phones when I was like in high school, but when I was in elementary school, it was MSN. Did you use MSN?
I remember that. Yep.
And that was that was the extent of social media. And then in high school, we got MySpace.
Mhm.
And even that, like, I thought that was putting a lot of pressure on us at that time. But it is nothing like what it is now. And I don't care how old you are now. I don't care if you are a 14-year-old girl, a 32-year-old woman, a 50-year-old woman. We are put under even more pressure now than we were then to look a certain way. And the fact that that pressure is being shoved in my daughter's face at 3 years old without even telling the parents
Mhm.
is shocking. And I feel like it wasn't malicious. I feel like they do it because maybe they sell more photos when they're touched up, because parents are like, "Oh my god, my kid looks great here." And then that's sad too because we're just so used to this Instagram face, even on babies. Like, I've seen parents, like people I went to high school with and things, I've seen them touch up their babies' faces, like if they have a birthmark or something. I've seen them go over that and like erase it for pictures. But it's like we're putting our insecurities on our kids. Our kids, they could have a birthmark covering their entire face. They don't see anything wrong with that until they see it from us, until they hear us saying, "Oh, we should try to, maybe cover this up with makeup or take it out of the picture, or turn your face the other way so that doesn't show." And then our insecurities start developing in them. They don't know what's beautiful, what is worthy of self love and respect and confidence until we show them,
Mhm.
right? And it's not only in how we treat them, but it's in how we treat ourselves. So, are we trying to make ourselves look beautiful or pretty when we put on makeup in the day, right? And when my daughter Lucy, 3 year old, she asked me like 6 months ago why I put on makeup, because she sees me getting ready for work or to go out with my husband, putting on makeup. And my first inclination was to be like, "Oh, I just want to look pretty for tonight or for the day." And I stopped myself short and I was like, "What the hell am I about to say? Because I want to look pretty? I am pretty. I don't need makeup to make me look pretty." I don't want her to think that I didn't feel pretty or worthy without makeup, because I sure as hell don't want her to grow up feeling like she's not going to be pretty without it.
Mhm.
And it's tough because I can control the language we use in our house, and we don't use words like pretty and beautiful. Only on like certain occasions we will in certain context. But if she wants to dress up in a skirt, she's totally obsessed with princesses and jewelry. And when she puts it on, she goes, "I'm so beautiful now." And I have to stop her and I say, "Not now. You're always beautiful. Let's get that like nice and clear. But when you put on the skirt, you're fancy." Or, "You look like you're ready to party," or something like that. And I just try to shift the language. And to be honest, like, I don't know how to do this correctly. I'm learning every day and I'm misstepping every day and finding new ways to address it. But I am so bothered with the fact that we as women and as mothers and our kids are now as young as 3 having to hear this stuff. And when I take her out, people tell Lucy, "Oh, you're so pretty." And they don't mean anything by it. They're being so warm and complimentary, but we're all brainwashed to say these things. And again, if we want to lift each other up and if we want to raise the collective, not just of mothers, but of women in general, we have to reach beyond that. And we have to start thinking, okay, why am I wearing makeup? Why am I getting Botox? Why am I getting filler? Why do I want to look a certain way? And a controversial outlook, which I've been considering a lot lately, would be we don't, none of us actually wear makeup for ourselves. None of us get Botox for ourselves. None of us get filler for ourselves. Because if it was for ourselves, when we want to just feel the best that we feel when it's just us kind of in our natural state, unless it's like for a certain aesthetic, right? But we get it to look a certain way. And we feel good when we look a certain way. And that way was dictated by a very patriarchal society. And it's like me, like I'm vain and I want to look that certain way. I want to stay fit. I want to, and I mean, a lot of that is health because I'm an athlete as well, but I wear makeup when I go out. I wear makeup when I go to work. And I know that I get treated differently when I do and when I look good. And I know that my pictures on Instagram get more likes when I have makeup on, and we get rewarded for it. But it's all a part of this stupid, scary cycle. And what is it? I think 80% of girls by the time they're 13 have edited an image of themselves online.
Mhm.
So as young as 13, they're editing images of themselves to fix, quote unquote, fix themselves and their imperfections. And that is so scary. And that is so damaging in so many ways. And like, it's lasting,
Mhm.
right? And now, like, I've been through that. And I was vain. And while I felt confident in high school and university, I was also super unconfident because I was so obsessed with the way I looked. And it just always, like, I remember some of my first boyfriends in my 20s waking up before them in the morning and like putting on like just like fixing up, right? And maybe putting on mascara, putting on a little blush and like sneaking back in bed. And I did that because I wanted them to think I was pretty the second I woke up, because even I had an issue with that. And it's like, it's psychotic. But we're all unfortunately a part of it to some degree. So now that I'm aging, and like I'm only 32, but like I get lines in my forehead, and I see my skin sometimes losing its shine or smoothness that it had. And I'm trying personally, and we all have different relationships with beauty and the beauty industry and ourselves. But what I'm trying to do, and that one conversation with my daughter about makeup kind of made me make up my mind on this, because I was in the process of finding somebody to give me Botox, and possibly under eye filler. When my daughter asked me that, I was reaching out to friends to find out where they go. And then I said, I can't. For me, I'm going to draw the line at makeup, because I don't want to, makeup I can take off at the end of the day. Personally, I don't want to feel like I have to change my face and hold on to youth and look younger to find value in myself. And I don't want my daughter that mommy needs to fix her face in any way and change my face to find value and to find beauty. So it's hard. I look in the mirror every day and I'm like, "Ooh, maybe I should just bite the bullet and get Botox. I think I'd like it." And it's like, yeah, I'd like it because then I'd look younger. And that's what I'm trying to train my brain not to not to chase. But it's scary. Like, it's so scary. Like, how many of the women I know, I'd say 75% of them are getting stuff done, and it's great, and it makes them feel good. It's like life's too short not to feel good, right? But I want to train myself to feel good without it, but it's hard. Like, it's not easy. Like, how many of the women I don't know how old you are. How many of them, what percentage?
What, honestly, like in my like personal friend group, I don't know too many, but I know like friend of friends, I would say, that have kind of started down that path. I know for sure, like when you're talking, I was thinking about all the filters out there, like
Yeah.
I mean, on Instagram, and I know friends that will fix up photos before they post them, and it's just in this, almost like automatic like thing where they don't even know what they're doing. They're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna post photos. So I'm gonna lighten this. I'm gonna take off this blemish.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely becoming more popular. I've heard of friends starting to look into it, and I'm like, we're still young, I'm like, I know we're in their 30s, but we're still young. But yeah, it's hard because it's a constant battle too, to kind of ask yourself,
Mhm.
okay, am I doing this because I want to, or yeah, like you made a good point, or am I doing it for someone else? It's the same with like material things, or like, am I gonna
Yes.
buy this because I actually want it? Or am I just trying to keep up with the Joneses? Or am I trying to do it because my friend bought one?
Status.
It's yeah, for sure. So I can totally agree with that. And it's definitely getting harder, I think, for kids now. We didn't have the social media, the
Mhm.
constant comparison online. I mean, we saw like magazines and TV
Yeah.
shows. Can you imagine?
Those magazines were brutal. Like, I actually saw one recently that was out, and it just reminded me of the magazines that they put out in the early 2000s. You probably remember. It's like where they're like, "Oh, best and worst beach bodies of 2005." And then it would have somebody being like, "Ooh, look how slim and toned so and so looks. And look at somebody over here looking like a beached whale." And they'd actually use words like that and use phrases like that. And it's disgusting.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, no wonder. me and so many people I know and went to university with and things like that, no wonder we all had this screwed up perception of our bodies and weird relationships with beauty. So for my own sake and my own mental health, that's why I'm trying to get out of that and I'm trying to ditch it. And I think a way that we can all do that, and again, I'm ultimately doing this for my kids because I want them to grow up with as little of that as possible.
Mhm.
But one way and one thing that's been really helping me in that process, I stopped following a lot of like I used to follow a lot of models that I really loved because I was like, oh my God, they're so beautiful. And I'd follow them to, get ideas for hair and makeup and just what is in the beauty world.
Right.
And I stopped following them because like I'm getting older, none of them are because they're all doing so much. So that makes me feel bad about myself. Not every day, but I don't even want to look at them one day a week and feel bad about myself. So as much as I love her, I got rid of Candace Swanpool from Victoria's Secret.
Mm.
She was like my favorite model to follow. Got rid of her on my Instagram, and I'm following more like a great model to follow, Paulina Porskova, one of like the early supermodels. She doesn't get stuff done. Like she gets like face treatments, but not filler or Botox or anything. And she's just kind of aging with all her wrinkles, and it is so sexy and it is so confident. And I'm like, oh my God, that's the confidence and the sex appeal I want in my life. Like aging is sexy, but the more we try to run away from that and hold on to youth, it's like we make it so it's not. But it totally is, especially if you own it. So I'm following more accounts like that. There's another really good one, And Bloom. It's this woman, Denise Boomkins, and she runs it. She's in her mid 40s, and it's just kind of like she's a photographer. She takes beautiful self portraits and portraits of other women, and it's just in their aging process,
Mm.
and it is so beautiful. And those kinds of things make me feel great, like so great. And then like as I follow one kind of trashy one. It's what's it called? Problematic Fame. Just because it's like it's kind of gossipy, but it's a good reminder that nothing is as it seems. So like it'll give you a picture of Kylie Jenner that she posted online, and then it'll give you like a paparazzi shot from the same two
Oh,
seconds.
yeah, I've seen those.
So
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
right, so you can see how much it's been edited and things like that before they go online. And it's just a good reminder that hey, when people put stuff up, like it's likely been doctored. So a step I've taken, even just for my followers, because I don't want to be, I don't want to have that effect on followers. That, and I don't want people to question, oh, like, is Alex using a filter in the story or something like that? So in stories, I always used to use Paris filter. I never post anything without Paris filter because it brightened you up and it just made you look nice and smooth and perky and everything. And for the first week of posting without it, I felt weird. I didn't post as often. I'd only do it in amazing light, like amazing natural light. And now, like I don't really care. I'll find the light. If I can find great light, I'll find that. But it's so easy now, and I don't think twice about storying and thinking about the way I look. And I don't doctor my photos. Like sometimes like I'll put a filter on them just to make them cohesive, but it's like an aesthetic thing, just like to maybe bring out the blues in the picture or something like that. But when I started the account, if I was having a breakout, like I definitely smooth it over. And I did stuff like that. I even remember smoothing over stretch marks one time. And after I did it, I felt so guilty and weird. And I'm like, what am I putting out there? Like, I'm putting out what I hate to see. So that was like the first year of the account. I did stuff like that and got out of that slowly. And in the past year, I haven't filters or any doctoring of anything because that's just not that I'm leaving like a legacy on social media. I know I'm not doing that, but if there was on a very small scale a legacy I was leaving on social media, I don't want it to be that, and I want it to be kind of like my journey out of that world.
I love like the accounts you're talking about. I love when people show like the real side to things and
Yeah.
unedited photos because it's so easy to see those big accounts and be like, oh my gosh, she's flawless all the time. And then you She's definitely using a filter, and it makes you feel like, okay, I have stretch marks, I have cellulite, you know what? It's normal.
Mhm.
Like, or I have a zit, like, because a lot of times, they're using these filters that now reshape your nose and change
Yes.
features. And it's
Make your eyes big.
yeah. And I'm like, all that's doing is when we constantly use those, we're just teaching
Mhm.
ourselves to hate our real selves more and more. Because there was even one day I was kind of just playing around on the stories, and like it thins out my nose, it makes my cheekbones higher and my eyes and all that. And as I'm going to my real face, I'm like, whoa, at first I'm like, oh, and then it's like, wait a second. I'm like, I've just been looking at filters for the last, 10 minutes. So it's just kind of like a reminder to be like, I'm not going to use those, because it really does teach, especially young kids, like you said, 13, that are on there,
Mhm.
themselves like, oh, don't like your features. Here, we'll change it for you. And it's sad. It's scary.
They make it so easy. And I know, I think where the Netherlands or something, they're putting in law that if you are advertising something or for an influencer partnership,
Mhm.
you're not allowed to edit your photo in that way. Like, you're not allowed to doctor how you look, like with Photoshop. I guess I'm sure you could put like a color filter on it, but you can't put any like face changing or body changing filters. And I think that's great. And there was even controversy about that law. And I'm like, what is controversial about that?
Right.
I think it is so beneficial for everybody involved. And that's personally, I think that's how it should be. And, I know there's a lot of talk online, especially in the mom community, because our bodies change so much in motherhood, right? Like, we go through a whole transformation of self, and it's wild and it's amazing. And there's been a huge move to start accepting that change instead of, finding the closest plastic surgeon to get the mommy package where they give you a breast lift and a tummy tuck and all that and lipo. There's been more of a move to accept our changing bodies and our stretch marks and things like that. However, what I see missing in this movement is the ability to accept our faces. So people are happy to show their cellulite, show their stretch marks, show their, soft tummies. But then when it comes to our faces, we don't give our faces the same grace that we give our bodies, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
it's like we're showing our bodies and all the things that make us us, but then we're freezing our forehead so we don't wrinkle. We're filling our lips so that they look plumper, like more like today's standards. And I just think there's such a disconnect there. And
Mhm.
we need to treat every part of ourselves with respect and love and acceptance. And it extends from the stretch marks. It goes right up to our forehead wrinkles. And it's a big ask. It's hard to say to a whole group of women, especially when you think of mothers. There's so much vulnerability in people after they give birth and when we're all kind of dealing with this body change. But if we can do it bit by bit, and maybe, hey, we're starting at the stretch marks and let's slowly start working on everything else. Let's make it our way up to our face and start changing how we view that too. And that's something that I hope a lot of the body influencers start doing, because I know a lot of the body influencers, they get a lot of stuff done to their faces and they're open about that. And that's awesome. Like, as long as you're open, I think that's already taking away a lot of what I hate about that.
Mhm.
But I just hope that they extend that grace just for their own sake, even. But
Yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
teach their own, ultimately.
Definitely. And so for moms listening that, maybe they're currently pregnant or maybe they have young kids right now, what would you tell them to make sure they keep kind of that positive, body standard, or get rid of those beauty standards in their house, and so they don't fall victim to unrealistic beauty standards? Like, what kind of tips would you have for children and teens?
The first thing that helped me is just go through your social media, get rid of anybody who makes you feel less than, or even not even makes you feel less than, but questions whether you should maybe look a certain way or do something different to change yourself to meet some standard. Go through your social media, just cleanse it. And then after you do that, start following accounts that give you power and make you feel good. For us in our house too, just changing our vocabulary and how we talk about things. So Shane and I don't ever talk about weight in front of the kids. We don't use the scales in front of the kids. And if we do, if they see us, and I mean, some people would say don't even use scales, which we don't often, but whatever, we do sometimes. And if the kids get on it, then it's a measure of how strong we are. And that's it, because there's no value in weight. And we don't want to attribute anything positive or negative to being thin or being not thin. But so it's really been hard for us to change our dialogue, because we were so conditioned to speak a certain way, to say pretty, to say beautiful, to say, oh, I'm feeling chubby or bloated, or I want to look thin, I want to look toned. And we still catch ourselves. Like, we are so far from perfect in these regards. And that's going to be the same for everybody, I think. Like, none of us are going to be good at it. But if we can start being more conscious of how we are approaching beauty and looks and weight, is going to make, I hope, a difference in our kids' relationships with beauty and with their own bodies and with themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think it's first learned at home. I mean, that's where you kind of see things first and hear things first. Those small steps definitely make a huge difference. And I think if we, just make that conscious choice too. Because, I'm like the same way when I'm around my niece, I'm always like making sure I'm not like, counting her looks first. Like, I want to comment on how smart she is or how talented she is. And so, yeah, I think that's so important. I love that. And so, I mean, I think this was just like an awesome conversation. We never talked about beauty standards on this podcast before. And so I love that you're so passionate about it. And it's something that affected you like directly. And I love that you're, the tips you share as well. I always like to end these interviews with fun thinking question, I call it. So if you could have a billboard made today where you could share one tip with moms everywhere, what would you have it say?
Okay, I know you sent me the questions beforehand, but I've been up since 3.
No problem.
But what I would say, and especially in regards to conversation that we had, that you're enough. You are enough. Every part of you, whether it is how you parent, the choices you make for your family, how you look, how you perceive yourself, how you are in your relationship, you are enough. And I think moms and dads, everybody within a family dynamic needs to be reminded of that. And just, it's not worth putting other people down if we're feeling down, and it's not worth getting down on ourselves. Just, you're enough, you're killing it. And that would be my message. Probably me giving a big thumbs up to anybody who sees it.
Awesome. I love it. And so where can everyone find, you have a podcast and your Instagram, your TikTok, where can everyone find you?
So Instagram and TikTok, we are at This Family Tree. And then our podcast is This Family Tree Podcast, and you can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts. And I hope that you guys come and check it out. We have a lot of fun, and more of me ranting as I'm exhausted every day, because I can't remember a day where I haven't been exhausted. So.
I love it. Well, it's working great. It was an awesome conversation. So that's awesome. And we'll put all the links to your show and Instagram in the show notes as well.
Thank you so much for having me today. I really had a nice time.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome. All right, guys, it's time for our Mom Tales of the Week. And man, we've got some good responses for you. Our Mom Tales are new questions we ask every week on our social media and in our Facebook group to get your take on motherhood and share your funny stories, interesting stories, and so much more. All right, so this week's question is, tell us a time you were mom shamed. And we got so many responses. And it kind of just shows that mom shaming happens to everyone, unfortunately. And if you listen to the intro of the show, we talk about getting rid of mom shaming. And we hope that the show will help do that, to show that everyone has a different story, everyone has a different background. And so people have different reasons for why they do certain things in their motherhood, parenting journey. So to go to another person and say that you're doing something wrong without knowing their full story, it's just not any of our business. We thought we would reach out to you guys to share a time that you had been mom shamed. Hopefully we can kind of see that it does happen to everyone. It doesn't make it any better, but that we can kind of watch our words and things that we say to other people when it comes to their children, because Again, we don't know their full story. So yeah, let's take a little less judgy on other people. All right, first one is Anna. I was mom shamed when I told my daughter's grandmother not to kiss her. She's almost 2 months old, and they just slapped in my face and proceeded to kiss her head as I told them not to. They said that's nonsense and said, how can you tell the grandparents what to do with their grandbaby? LOL, I took my child and left. I felt so shamed and questioned for trying to keep my daughter from any harm. Oh my gosh. You know what? I see this all the time where grandparents or other people do not respect kissing or touching a baby. And that to me is just crazy. If a mother says, please do not do that, plain and simple, do not do it. And do not shame someone for doing it, because there's definitely reasons to be safe, but it's totally up to the mom's discretion and what is comfortable for her and baby. Good on you for leaving though and standing your ground. Number 2, Heather. The pediatrician shamed my husband because he wasn't sure how many ounces of food the baby got in a day. He worked second shift, so he wasn't there during the day. I can't believe a pediatrician would shame a husband for not knowing that. And also, even if he was there and he forgot, there's just no reason to make someone feel bad about that at all. Number 3, I've been mom shamed by several women for giving up on breastfeeding and switching to formula when my daughter was 4 weeks old. She had a very bad lactose allergy, and instead of switching up my diet to accommodate her, I decided lactose-free formula would be a faster way to help her feel better. I've gotten so much hate for ending my breastfeeding journey so early. Oh my gosh, this is another one of those things where you don't know the person's full story, so what's the point of even making someone feel bad? She probably already felt bad about not being able to breastfeed, or her baby feeling so sick and having an allergy that she's doing the best she can and she's doing what makes sense for her and her family. All right, number 4, Nav. I get shamed for being a full-time worker. People always tell me because I have 3 kids that how can I be a mom when someone else takes care of my kids a lot of the time? Even though I work 40 hours a week, I always spend time with my kids when I'm not at work, and I make sure my kids are happy. You know what? Good on you. Here's the thing. How many times do people say to a dad or a husband, I can't believe you work with blank amount of kids? They don't. They only say it to the moms, and that's a horrible thing. You are doing amazing for your kids. I mean, look at what you're doing. There are so many positives to this too. They're going to see you out there and working, and it's what works best for your family. So don't feel bad about that. You are doing amazing. Okay, number 5, Monet. I was mom shamed by my sister, who is also a mother. During pregnancy, I had really bad carpal tunnel. Post-pregnancy, it was even worse, where my thumbs on both hands became completely unusable, and there was so much pain. I reached out to my mom for help and asked her to stay with me. My sister would not stop commenting how she had the same issue with her daughter, but she didn't have my mom come live with her, and she went back to work 2 weeks after giving birth, while I'm taking maternity and bonding leave. I felt so bad after that for asking my mom to come live with me. I ended up sending my mom back to her house, and now whenever my kids aren't cooperating with me, I just cry it out and do what needs to be done and ask my husband to help me with the medicine for my hands. Oh my gosh, my heart breaks for you, because you know what? You did a powerful thing by asking for help. You know how many moms and women out there will not ask for help? And you were brave enough to ask for help. So don't let your sister make you feel bad about that, because here's the thing. A lot of times we project what we're feeling onto other people. So maybe she didn't have the courage to ask for help. So now that she sees you so willingly asking for help, she wants to make you feel bad about it. Or, going back to work after 2 weeks is very hard on your body, and it's not typically recommended depending on, what job you do. So maybe she didn't have the option. And so now she's feeling bad and projecting again on you. I'm really sorry she made you feel that way. And I hope it doesn't deter you from asking for help in the future, because that does not make you weak or a bad mom. It, in fact, makes you strong to recognize, hey, I can't do everything. I need some help. Number 6, Jackie. I was at an urgent care because I wasn't feeling well and my husband was working, so I had to bring my 3 kids with me. They just turned 4, 2, and 1. My 2-year-old was taking his hat off and throwing it after we waited for 20 minutes for the doctor. I told him no and asked him not to throw it again. All this while the doctor was watching. Of course, my son threw his hat again, and the doctor spoke up and said, that is what happens when you have your kids too close together. I felt like a loser of a mom who couldn't get her kids to obey, but then again, he was only 2. What? The fact that you're a doctor, someone that you trust with your health, is making you feel bad about the number of kids you had and how close you had. For one, he's a 2-year-old. That's a very normal behavior for a 2-year-old, and that's just unacceptable for a doctor to say that. That's all I have to say about that. So yeah. Number 7, Brie. I've been shamed for dressing my baby gender neutral so she can decide later on her style and interest instead of society telling her how she needs to be. I love that you do this, and more stores have gender neutral clothing because not all girls want to wear frilly pink dresses and not all boys want to wear football jerseys, so I think it's completely acceptable to wear clothes that are more gender neutral, and they can decide like, hey, do I want to wear a dress? Am I more, feminine or masculine? They can decide. I think that's totally awesome. Number 8, Dana. Yesterday, I took my 9-month-old to the grocery store in footy pajamas. In his car seat, 50 degrees outside, so not freezing but not warm, with a blanket thrown on top of him. And an older guy in a scooter comes over and gave me $20 and told me to buy my kids some shoes. Oh my gosh. I would just take the money and say thanks and just walk away. Sometimes it's just not even worth saying anything. Oh my gosh. I don't even know. Yeah. What did you do? I'm really curious. Like, if you took the money, if you just looked at him funny, or I would just be kind of shocked that someone would say that. It's so interesting to me how the same things people say to children or babies, they would never say or do to adults. Maybe in some circumstances, but I just feel like, if they see a baby, they're like able to like comment on certain things or what they're wearing. And it's like, they would never just go up to an adult and say that. So I find that really interesting. Okay, number 9, anonymous. I was told my C-section didn't count because I wasn't able to have a natural birth. All birth is natural. Okay, this one really grinds my gears. I've seen this before in our Facebook group so many times where they were told because they had a C-section, they didn't actually give birth. And I'm just like, what? How does that even make sense? They gave birth. They still had a baby. I don't understand how someone could have the audacity to say that to a mom, especially that just went through a major surgery. I'm sorry that you had to deal with that. And I hope that anyone that's watching or listening knows that don't take people like that seriously. They don't have a full appreciation for what you have done and what your body has done to bring your baby onto this world. So sorry you had to deal with that. All right, guys. That is all the mom tales I have for today. Like I said, this was a really popular one. There's unfortunately mom shaming happening all the time, and it has to stop. We don't know each other's full stories. We don't know why they made a certain decision. So to see someone and quickly make judgments or shame them for doing something is completely wrong. So I hope we can take this as a sign to be more empathetic and understanding and more helpful and supportive to new moms instead of judging or shaming them based on making different choices than we maybe would have made. So let's take that and run with it. And I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you next week. Hey guys, if you found this or any episode of Mom Talks with Christa helpful, please like, comment, subscribe, and of course, share it with your friends. We release new videos every single Wednesday, and our new podcast is out every single Thursday. So lots of different ways you can catch us. And of course, if you're not following us on our socials, go ahead and follow us there. We've got tons of new content for you every single day. And finally, if you're watching this and doubting yourself, you're doing a great job. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.